Good afternoon, Mr. Gahn. Okay. We have your written testimony, so anything quick you'd like to say, and then...
I'll make one brief statement.
Thank you. Please identify yourself. And then
Carla Pagan, Executive Director, Board of Revision of Taxes.
Thank you.
The chairman was upset that he couldn't be here today, so he did ask me to read a statement to you all. He says, Chairman Eugene Mayer, Judge, and Chairman of the Board of Revision of Taxes, the BRT has about 50 very high-volume appeals scheduled this morning at 10 a.m. The attendance of the appeals procedures precludes his appearance here at City Council testimony today. The BRT has instituted procedures to expedite the 6,300 plus appeals scheduled for tax year 2018. Among those procedures is a very stringent non-continuance policy. So the appeals, which will be prosecuted by the School District of Philadelphia today, must go forward. He would like to report that the BRT has completed more than 3,000 appeals for tax year 2018 and will again confirm that all 2018 appeals will be heard and decided by December 31st, and is available if you have questions for him at a later date.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me ask quickly, I know your written testimony, you talk about the new CAMA system, which we seem to be hearing about for years here.
Yes.
That they say is coming next year, I believe.
Yes.
And you say it'll dramatically reduce the amount of processing. Could you explain why that would make that kind of difference? And I guess on the other side, what are we losing time-wise by not having it? Because it seemed like we kept getting promised that for a few years. That's not your fault. I'm just saying, you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when people ask us to do certain things, I kind of describe our systems post the typewriter before Windows almost. So right now there's a lot of manual manipulation, and you take 10 steps to share information or process a document that should normally require 1 or 2 steps. Mm-hmm. So that new CAMA system will have a piece that covers an appeals module, so it will help us quickly receive appeals and then share those appeal filings with our department, with also the assessors at the OPA. And then it allows us to keep status updates with the property owners regarding their appeal applications, and also easily communicate their hearing information and also their decision information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So any rough idea when you say cut it down percentage-wise, any guesstimate on that, would you say?
We operate at very minimal staff levels now.
Okay.
We have personnel that we absolutely need. So it probably won't eliminate additional people, but the jobs and tasks that we have become more efficient.
Okay. Now I'm just talking about time-wise. I'm not looking to lose people for you.
So it saves operations time-wise. So are you thinking time-wise as in the hearing schedule? Or?
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, yeah. Where the constituents say, why is it taking so long to, get my hearing?
So it probably won't reduce the time in a hearing, because most people that are waiting for hearings actually want to come in before the board and put testimony on.
Okay. Right. So this is getting the information together before the hearing, basically.
Correct.
Okay,
correct.
Gotcha. One other quick thing.
Sure.
I know oftentimes when people appeal, they're saying my property's not worth 400, it's only worth 300 or whatever. Is it fair to say the best thing that they should come in is an appraisal? Is that the most effective argument that they can make?
Well, for residential property owners under $1 million, they don't have to go out and pay for an appraisal report.
Yeah.
If they don't have a local real estate office they're in contact with, the easiest, if they have internet access, they can go into Trulia or Zillow or Realtor.com and find other properties in their neighborhood that are similar to theirs and look at those sales numbers. So you want the city's market value should be close to what your house would sell for. So they could find comparable sales at no cost to them.
They can do comps? Okay.
Correct.
Because I know a lot of times I'm told the best thing they could come in. I know appraisals cost money, $600-700, which is people trying to save money, but I've been told that's the most effective way to do it.
For properties over $500,000, but it's not a board requirement.
No, I know it's not a requirement. I'm just saying what is the best sort of argument you can make. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Councilwoman Gim.
Yes, thank you very much, Councilman. Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So could you tell me what the BRT's current schedule is for hearings?
Sure, you want the calendar or appeal volume? Right, so right now they're actually in hearings. We have 3 oral hearings a week. That's Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. On Wednesday, the board reviews all of those petitions that are considered non-oral or administrative hearings. And then we also read cases into the record on Wednesdays. And then Friday is a prep day. So 3 oral days a week, 1 non-oral administrative day a week.
Isn't that 2 administrative days a week? So if you have 3 hearing days, wouldn't that actually be 2 administrative days?
So Friday, I don't really classify as administrative, only because they can prep either in the office or outside of the office. So technically, yes, Friday is an administrative day, but the prep at work is not required to be done in the office.
And for clarity, how much are the board positions paid?
The chairman makes $75,000 a year, the secretary $72,500, and the other board members $70,000 a year.
And I think City Council increased the salaries in part to ensure that we could meet some of our deadlines for AVI. Is that correct?
I know it's called an increase. When the board had salary issues before, it was a reinstatement of their existing salary. So the salaries I quoted had been the salaries for at least more than a decade. At one point, they were taken away, so it was a reinstatement of salaries rather than an increase.
Okay. So one of the questions that I had was, as you know, there was a lot of struggle during the 2014 AVI process when the appeals were significantly delayed. There were lots of questions that were had about the BRT schedule. And in part, it had a lot to do with the fact that as a result of the significant delays, the School District of Philadelphia was significantly off the mark in terms of its budget projections and estimates. I think when we came in last time, one of the questions that I had asked about whether it was possible to move to 4 hearings a week, given the fact that we have another significant situation around assessments, people need and deserve to have their hearings presented before them as quickly as possible. And I'm wondering what you think the BRT's capacity is to handle what I would expect to be an enormous round of appeals processes coming through.
So on average annually, we receive, on a regular year or an average year, we receive 5,000 to 8,000 appeals. There's no reason that in a calendar year, January through December, the board can't hear and render decisions on all those appeals. The year you're speaking about AVI, there were 24,000 appeals filed in one year. So that was the main reason that appeal volume took so long to get through. But so for example—
What was your schedule for meeting during the AVI period? I think when we discussed, there was lots of questions about how frequently the BRT was meeting, particularly during the summer.
Yeah, so during the AVI appeal year, we ended up having to split the board into 2 quorums, and we actually had AM sessions and AM sessions and afternoon sessions 3 days a week, and I think non-oral sessions 2 days a week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I know that that was one of the outstanding concerns. I would anticipate that given the number of people who are going to be reassessed across the city, that the 24,000 appeals that we saw in 2014 wouldn't necessarily be completely off the mark in this particular case. So how does the BRT intend to alter its schedule to meet the demand that is likely to come through in 2018?
So we don't expect 24,000 appeals. So during AVI, 560,000 notices went out, and over 400,000 residents got changed in value. So we're estimating maybe 6,000 to 8,000 for tax year 2019. And again, going off of, we use OPA's numbers and estimates kind of project our business, but although the assessment office is putting out a large volume of appeals, or excuse me, assessment changes, there is a significant portion that it will have decreases. So we don't think it would impact the appeal filing volume like it did for tax year 2014.
And should there be a change in that, should more appeals be filed, is the BRT planning to rearrange its hearing schedule to meet that kind of demand?
Absolutely. And it seems it worked best when you have a large volume of residential cases to split the board and do an AM and a PM session. So then you're doubling your oral hearings in one work week.
Mm-hmm. And could you not, I know that one of the questions that came up was about your intention to meet the 2018 goal of conclusion or resolution of all the appeals, but arguably couldn't you do the splitting up of the AM and PM now and just guarantee that you'll meet the goals as opposed to project and hope that you'll meet
Well,
those goals?
so this is we're guaranteeing for 2018. Absolutely, it's a guarantee. For most of this appeal year, the split hearing won't work only because typically we get about 30% commercial cases and 70% residential. And for tax year 2018, it was the exact opposite. So the majority of our cases are for commercial appeals, and that hearing testimony takes twice, sometimes 4 times as long as a residential appeal hearing. So we have more cases held during a day, but the hearings tend to go much longer.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think I mentioned this last year, but again, you know, I recognize that this is, you know, a significant issue, but many of our residents rely very heavily on the appeals process, as do our city and state school district government entities. Budgets are relying on it. School children are relying on the effective resolution of appeals. And I would urge you again to see what you can do, because there are 5 days in a week. Because currently the hearings are scheduled 3. I understand that there needs to be administrative prep 2 days a week. For administrative prep seems like a lot, especially when so much is hanging in the balance. And, you know, I think it's really clear that the city of Philadelphia put in an effort to make sure that the commissioners were paid an appropriate amount, that they were paid equally, so that commissioners did not get paid unfairly during any kind of time period. But in return, my hope would be that there would be the confidence that the commissioners would meet 4 to 5 days a week, that you would try to up your hearing schedules significantly in order to ensure that all of us on city council have the confidence that the resolutions to the appeals process and that our own citizenry can be sure that there can be a rapid resolution. Even if the resolution may or may not be the outcome that people want, they need resolution quickly. We can't see what happened with the ABI process in 2014 happen again.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Dahl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions.
Sure.
Could you walk me through the process of how somebody goes to file an appeal and the processes that we take on our end?
Sure. So the appeal filing deadline's first Monday of October. So for 2019 assessments, it'll be October 1st of 2018. They can either file by coming into our office. The form is also on our website. They can complete the fillable PDF and email that form to us, or they can mail a form in. So once we receive that form, it goes through a data entry process in our office, and it's also scanned, so it's electronically shared with the assessor's office. And then once all the appeals are in our system, scheduling begins for them. Hearing notices go out. And then probably 2 weeks to 30 days after any given hearing, they receive a decision letter. If any one person's appeal gets reduced, we send that revised lower number to the assessment office, and then a cert goes to revenue to change their tax bill. And then if appeal is denied, the bill stays the same.
And then if I were to file an appeal today, what's the anticipated time frame when I might be in front of the board appealing my taxes?
So it would depend. So for tax year 2018, again, it's a very heavy commercial hearing year. So we made the attempt to schedule a lot of homeowners first to get their appeals in and heard by March 31st. So if they did get reduced, they could pay their lower tax bill. We will, though, have 2,000 appeal hearings through the fall of this year. So a couple unique things. A lot of cases are in the 10 million plus mark. that we've kind of sprinkled out throughout this calendar year, and then there are cases that are well over 50 million. And so they'll have hearings throughout the calendar year. And so, for example, also a lot of attorneys have filed appeals this year rather than property owners. So we might have one law office that has filed 100 to 300 appeals. So in that kind of case, we've actually taken that law officer, one or two lawyers, and given them a schedule from January 2018 through December, so they have their whole hearing schedule for the year in front of them, so they can plan accordingly.
Is the property owner required to pay the increased amount while they're going through the hearing?
Yes, this year they have been.
And if they determine that the amount is incorrect, is that check then returned to the property owner, or is it applied against future obligations?
They can either apply for a refund, and that check is returned to them, or if they do nothing, they'll have a credit on their 2019 bill.
Right, but we don't pay any interest on the money that we receive from them, right?
I don't know, actually.
Do we pay an interest rate on, if we have to return $10,000 to somebody and we've held it for a year, do we pay any interest on the money, or we just use it as an interest-free loan?
I'm not sure about that, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me just, from what I'm looking at the numbers, I just want to read this into the record to make sure I understand what's going on with the assessments. The assessment numbers total about 26% of the properties in Philadelphia on the most recent assessment went down in value, and 2% stayed the same. 30% increased between 1 and 10%, and 42% increased 10, 15, 20, and higher percent. And you think there's only going to be 6,000 to 8,000 appeals from that information?
We're anticipating under 10,000.
Okay.
We've actually overestimated these past few years, so.
I mean, 10,000 would be great, because really, when you look at the whole portfolio, it's less than 2%.
Right. And a part of our appeal numbers being smaller than usual is that also with AVI, the OPA implemented that first level review process. So before, if we took the entire burden of the appeal filing, now part of that burden is shared with the assessment office.
And so if I file for an appeal, is there a first review process that can be expedited where you meet with 2 or 3 people to see if you can resolve the question of, of the value of the property? Does that happen?
Yes, but it's usually without a meeting. So maybe you might file, you don't hear anything, but you get a receipt letter, and then you may get a decision a month to 3 months later.
So look, I just want to throw out this idea for you to think about. Instead of having people wait 6 months or a year or longer to come in front of the board, would it make sense to have 2 or 3 people with the assessor meet with the person whose taxes were raised in a meeting and see if that can be resolved rather than going through the whole process?
I think the assessment office tries to do that, but again, it depends how many informal appeals they get and what they're doing in that assessment calendar
But the
during that time.
assessor's doing it one-on-one with the taxpayer.
Correct.
What
Or
I'm
they're
talking
making
about
inspections.
Instead of going from one-on-one to now we have a whole board of, how many people on the board? 7?
7.
Is there an intermediary step where you can't resolve with the assessor, but you bring in 2 other people with the assessor and the taxpayer to try to get it resolved?
We've done that one time, and that's during AVI, for those, property owners that were willing, and we had masters come in to help those people that just wanted to speak before, 1 or 2 board members. So
Okay.
yes, we did that once before. And if we do get 20,000 appeals, that will be another step we'll have to take for 2019.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, or Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Kim.
Thank you very much, Council President. Just for clarity, can you tell me usually when you say that what are the hours that the BRT usually does hearings from?
So for the last 2 tax years, hearings have started at 10 a.m.
And conclude when usually?
So we have hearings that last 15 minutes and 5 hours. It all depends on how many of the cases get settled before the hearing.
So there's not a conclusion time, you just schedule a certain number of hearings per day?
There's not. So for example, today we had 50 to 75 school district appeals scheduled. And so maybe of those 60 cases, I think 15 of those were settled before hearings started today. So we anticipate some settlements, So that may cut a half an hour off the hearing time. But then sometimes you may anticipate 25% of the cases being settled, and they don't, and hearings go well into the afternoon. So it really depends on the caseload and what documents the property owners file with their appeal, and if they can reach a settlement with the assessment office.
And do you require all 7 commissioners to be in the hearing to listen to all the cases all at once?
We don't. So state law says a quorum is 4 board members. So just like in AVI, if we have a huge appeal volume, we'll split the board and do 2 panels of 4 board members.
Okay. And so then, do you normally seek to schedule 50 to 75 hearings a day? Is that your schedule?
Depending on what's on the docket for the day. So for example, maybe on condo hearing days, we can bring in 4 condo buildings and get through 800 appeals in one day. Commercial cases that are 5 million to 50 million, we may schedule 30 to 50 in a day. And then residential neighborhoods where the property values are 250 to 700,000, maybe 50 to 70 cases a day.
And do you schedule those based on the amount of time they're expected to take up during the day? So there's not like a set amount of time that
correct.
you just start at 10 a.m. and
what we anticipate, right.
Whenever you conclude, is that the end?
Correct. Well, it's not when we conclude, it's when the caseload is done. So we might schedule 50 people for 10 a.m. and everyone walks in the door at 10 a.m. And they're scheduled in a sequence order. So one person may be in and out in 15 minutes, and then the person at the end of the hearing day may be out in 2 or 3 hours. Yeah.
But you could conclude at 2 p.m., for example. Like your schedule could be done, if you move rapidly through it, you could be
If the caseload is done, yes, the schedule could conclude, yeah.
And then the rest of the time is for administrative time?
Well, so it depends on what the board has scheduled for the next 2 hearing dates. So we'll schedule, you try to schedule residential appeals intertwined with commercial appeals, because commercial cases require more extensive prep time. If you're reviewing a case where they're arguing over $50 million versus $5,000, the prep time does become extensive. So it depends what the board has on their docket for the following 2 hearing dates.
Okay. All right, thank you for clarifying that schedule. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes our testimony for today. Thank you very much for your testimony,
Thank you.
Ms. Pagan. Yeah, I forgot I was supposed to take a break. We're going to come back and do tax bills this afternoon. Mr. DeBoe. I'll take like a 45-minute break. So we'll be back at 1:45. Oh, great, thank you. I enjoy you.